Matt, would you like a crack at self-correcting?
Yeah. On the one hand, I see how from his perspective he can say that that's self-correcting. I don't necessarily see it as self-correcting because the correction came from outside of the Orthodox view at the time. This was you can make the claim that it's self-correcting if you assume that there is a divine providence guiding these corrections. But I would say that in a secular moral system, we have a clear path to self-correction, and that is that, let's say I'm a slave owner, in the early United States, and it's clear that I have some preconception that I am better as a person, more valuable than the individual that's my slave. Otherwise, I would immediately recognize the contradiction, immediately recognize that, oh wow. And it is this process by which the system evaluates the results that it produces to compare this value, I'm better, with my other values, which is, for example, I want to live in a world where well-being is considered, or now I have met an individual who would have ordinarily been a slave in my camp, and they have shown me a different aspect of their nature, such that now this is in question. It has to be self-correcting because it's all-encompassing. The mechanism is there, and the mechanism is reason and understanding. Not just reason, and it's reason and an empathetic position. The understanding that you are not the universe. And Father Himes pointed out a minute ago that that you need something higher than yourself, and the assertion is that secular views don't have something that's higher than themselves. And that's not necessarily true. I am not the penultimate authority on what is moral. I am the ultimate arbiter of what I consider to be moral. I can have my mind changed based on evidence. That is a self-correcting mechanism. But the thing that is higher than me are the values that I and my society, and I don't want to make it sound like it's relative because it's not just the society. The things we value, and we start with simple things, life and family, purpose, death, etc. So when we find values in conflict, the results are what lead us back to correct those values. Very good.
First of all, Mr. Jacobse, you mentioned, well, obviously this Christian self-correcting principle, and by implication that an atheist society or a secular society can't have that. And then you brought up the existentialists who basically fixed society based on the horrors of World War I and seeing what went wrong, and I assume empathy for others and imagining what it would be like to be when we killed doughboys, blah, blah, blah. All of these, including the stuff that you attributed to Martin Luther King, are also all available to an atheist.
Yes.
So, what do we need Christianity for? And if I may, I also have a question for Mr. Dillahunty and Mr. Shook.
One question.
Because Martin Luther King was a Christian, and he would tell you that every precept that he awoken both Christian and atheist, the Christian and atheist conscience with, drew from the moral tradition. I would argue, I'd take a little farther, and I would say if the atheists won't agree with this, but I think it's historically demonstrable that even the values of atheism draw from the Christian moral tradition.
We keep going. I addressed that earlier.
All right, next question, please.
Thank you. I'm a Muslim by religion, and I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience on this earth, and God has created us, and because God has created us, He has given us the purpose of life, how to live our life, and the morals. What are the morals to follow in this life? So those morals are eternal, whether someone was inexistent in 300 BC or will come 7 or thousands of years later after us. So
So you're saying that the moral is the same 300 years ago and 1,000 years from now?
things.
Did you have a question for one of our debaters, please? So what your proposition in the form of a question?
So what I'm trying to understand from Mr. Matt is that reason is there in religion, but it's only in the implementation part. For example, today's society is very different from 700 years ago. So implementation is where reason comes in. So how can you say that the reason is just limited to what you do today, and you can reason it today's ideas, but not look at what has happened in the past and what is to come in the future, and because the morals will change based on reasoning. Morals will change from person to person and society to society.
Sure. I didn't say that we only consider reason now and we don't consider the past. What I'm saying is that, for example, slavery was always immoral. It's just that the people did not recognize it because they had a value that was in conflict with it. That's just the way it is. It was a discovery. It was a learned thing that, hey, we've been doing something wrong. It is necessarily wrong, is what I'm saying. Your position about a religion that teaches everything good from the get-go. Find that one.
I'm following one.
Okay. And as soon as you can actually demonstrate the truth of that permanent good, then I say that you've found
Would you accept
the
Islam?
moral truth. But it's the fact that you have to demonstrate it independent of a theistic faith. It is demonstrated by its effectiveness. And the fact that you found a truth does not in any way testify to the source that is being proposed for that truth, any more than if I guess heads on a coin flip proves that I'm psychic. There's a difference between this exists and this is its cause, and there needs to be a causal link to find there. So while I would laud any religion that had a perfectly good set of morals, and I don't, no offense to you, but I don't think any of them exist. I don't think any secular moral system is, I don't even know that it's possible to get it all right. And Sam Harris relates the idea of well-being that we use for morals to health. We don't have a perfect understanding of what health is. That doesn't mean that we throw up our hands and say, well, we don't know whether drinking battery acid is better than drinking milk. We do. And the idea, for example, I liken morality to a strategy of the game, the physical reality that we inhabit, and I'm way over a minute. I liken morality to the strategy of the game, and the fact that we don't necessarily have a perfect strategy doesn't mean we don't have ideas about what's better than others. And it doesn't mean we throw up our hands and give up. So, I mean, if you want, you can email me and tell me about the perfectly good, moral views of Islam. Sure, it's president@atheist-community.org.
Do you have a card outside of that?
I didn't bring cards, but and you can. I gave the addresses. I'll be around afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Next question, please.
All right, this question to the father. You said earlier that reason can lead to morality, but still you said it's not completely that. You said that there's the extra thing, like you mentioned beauty and music that cannot be explained by reason. But how do music and beauty actually help you shaping your morality? And if they can't, can people be moral without this extra thing other than the reason?
I'd say the way that works is that music, good music, whatever the higher things, if you will, the things that seek to penetrate more deeply into the nature of reality, make you more human. Okay, if you are reading literature over, say, watching pornography, okay, you're going to be a different person at the end of the week. Okay, if you read Dostoevsky again, or any good novel, you spend 10 hours a week doing that, versus 10 hours a week watching porn on your computer. Okay, at the end of the week, you're going to be a different person. Okay, and I believe that and I live my life this way, and I believe it because I believe it's true. And as I said before, the fact I believe it does not make it true. Okay? It's true. That's why I believe it. Is that man is fundamentally, before all things, a spiritual being. Okay? He's also a material being, but I repudiate. I just don't implicitly reject. I repudiate the claim he is nothing more than his molecules. I say that every man, whether you believe this or not, every man and woman alive, whether you believe this or not, has some spark of divinity in him. That spark is defined in my narrative text that shapes how I view things as the very breath of God. That we are both created out of the dust of the ground, he says, but we also possess his breath in some ways. The narrative tells us man became a living soul. And that very reality calls you upward, higher. And when we look at history, when that is recognized and understood, you see the great developments in science, art, architecture. That is its source, and that is its motivation. So, what are we going to be? Are we going to be someone who disciplines ourselves and reads the good stuff? Or are we just going to glue our screens to our computer and watch porn for the rest of our life? Okay? I'm telling you, you guys, because I know you all do it. I know you all do it. In the end, listen to me. In the end, you're going to become more of an animal and less of an angel. Because you're denying something fundamentally true about yourself. Can I answer your question?
All right.
Yes, well, I think that...
No. This is not a dialogue opportunity. Next question, please. And let's accelerate the Q&A a bit. We're approaching the time stop, I'm afraid.
Michael Shermer wrote a book called The Science of Good and Evil. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It posits that basically evolution favors individuals and cultures that are more moral than others. I guess, Matt, what is your thought on that hypothesis? And as far as the father is concerned, if you do believe evolution...
We have time for one question.
Okay.
I think you've asked it. Matt?
I agree.
I believe that the Darwinian narrative of creation is the creation narrative of the philosophical materialists.
Next question, please.
Prophet, this one is for you. I have a question about, you said earlier that God produces creativity in man, more or less. However, there are a lot of artists, writers, and musicians who are atheists. Gordon L. being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious how you would reconcile that or defend that.
Yeah. I would say that the natural creativity with man is congruent with the nature, well, we don't know the nature of God, we only know his person, okay? We don't know anything about God's nature. It's congruent with the person of God as he's revealed to us in both the sacred text and Muslim would agree with me on that, by the way. He would agree with me. And in the sacred text of Christian scripture, but also through the work and witnesses of other people, okay? I think that creativity exists and is not dependent on one's belief in God. It exists despite one's belief or non-belief in God. Some things are beyond the scope of logical demonstrability. In fact, much of life is. Much of life really is. Human creativity is a construct we all understand, but you can't stick it under a microscope. You only recognize it by its fruit, what it produces. And it's full of meaning, even if it says there is no meaning. Okay? That itself is meaningful. Okay?
Great.